packed.
Yay.
All right. And now a word about judges before I get into my stream of consciousness. Most of the judges I've appeared before have been straight up honorable folks that I really rather liked. But there are a few judges I appeared before that if they were outside on fire, I don't think I go piss on them to put them out. I have to say also, I've been in Texas my whole life, so I've only seen federal judges appointed by Republicans, right? We haven't had a Democratic senator in Texas since the 80s. So all judges in the federal courts in Texas in my career, in my lifetime, have been Republican. And every single one of them have been great. I have really admired Lee Gagel, Stan Sparks, who we got up there. Other names will come up in a minute. But they're fair and they're respectful, and I just thought I guess I've been lucky. But when I started talking about or thinking about judges, I started making a list of those that I wish was on fire outside. And man, it was a long list. And I thought, well, this is another book, okay? And I would be happy to give examples of some lousy, crummy judges that I had to deal with, but they were almost always in state court. I will do one anecdote right quick. The only federal judge that I really ever had any problem with, good old Walter Smith in Waco. And this is just a petty thing, but it's sort of, I still think about it after 30 years. My client is set for sentencing on a drug case in Waco. He was arrested in Austin, but Walter Smith sits in Waco and he's presiding. And for some reason, the case has been transferred up there. So I'm going up there for discovery and for the guilty plea. And then it's time for sentencing, like July 10th, okay, 1992 or something. And so I'm getting ready for the sentencing. And about 2 days before, like July 8th, I get this notice that the sentencing has been postponed for 1 week, the 10th to the 17th. Well, okay, but except that I already had planned my own summer vacation. I called to the court administrator. I said, what the heck? This is very short notice. And then sentencing just a week later, usually you get a month or two notice. Well, he had a fishing trip to come up and he wanted to go fishing. So it's just been knocked off, pushed back 1 week. I said, well, I've got a vacation plans for the July 17th that, I've been planning for months and it's paid for and I can't go. Well, file your motion. So, of course, this is easy. Motion for continuance, enjoy your fishing trip. I have a vacation the following week. Can we do this any other time in 1992? Surely that's going to be granted, right? No. So I go on my vacation, but so I'm not held in contempt. I send some poor lawyer who is not a criminal lawyer and doesn't know anything about the case to stand in and say, okay, send us our guy. So that was Walter Smith. I want that on the record. That was just chicken shit, So, okay. That's all let's see.
Can I ask a question before you get to your stream of consciousness? You said a lot of misdemeanor trials, but those can make a huge difference to somebody's life.
Exactly.
Because my daughter's working in the legal defense clinic at
UT Law.
And she was fascinated because it's for misdemeanors. And she said, are those very important? And the guy next to me said, yeah, my son couldn't get into the Naval Academy because he had a misdemeanor conviction. And so I don't think people know. And their whole goal is to try to keep people from getting their life messed up for the next 30, 40 years because they didn't handle it.
God help them if they're immigrants and not legal status. Misdemeanor will kill that right away. But yeah, the drunk driving or something of which there are a dime a dozen here in Travis County, that makes a big difference too. that individual, I mean, he's going to lose his license. Then he can't get into the Naval Academy or some such thing. So, but that's not changing the world. That's not uh, significant in the grand scheme of things. But in that family, in his life, I'm glad to have made a difference in a lot of those guys' lives. Okay, so a list of judges. Oh, I just wanted to say, these state judges that I went through outside on fire, mean, biased, weak, lazy, selfish, racist, and stubborn. Just, I will give examples of every one of them if you want. But I'll name some names too. Some of them are already dead, so it's good. Okay, well, let's see. Where should I start? Maybe I'll start with 1988. So I had just hung out my shingle like a month or two before. And it's a Friday before Memorial Day. I call this the drug money caper case. So it's Friday before Memorial Day. It's 6 p.m. So it's spring day, fading sunlight, beautiful day. I'm playing Frisbee at the LBJ Library, big green expanse with the big fountain. What a great place. And it's 92. No, it's 88. So I have one of the first cell phones ever, that materialized, that came out. And it's a big old thing about the size of a shoebox, right? Yeah. So I have it there on the table and taking a break. And I get a call. Maybe was not my first call on the phone, but that one was we have the money, Mr. Reynolds. That was a good call, but this was a couple of months later. This guy says, okay, I need you. I'm really, really desperate. You don't know who I am, but you were referred by X, Y, and Z, and I got cops and feds and IRS all over my house, DEA. So they're looking for drug money, and we're all terrified, and we're all going to jail, and blah, blah, blah. You need to come. Please come right now. I'm in Dripping Springs, he says. So I said, well, this is a heavy lift on a Friday before a 3-day weekend, and I don't know who you are. And let's talk about the money for just a minute. So he says they've searched our house. They punched holes in the walls. They tore up everything, and they did find $10,000 in cash. He said, but Reynolds, he said, Mr. Reynolds, I got a settlement in a civil case just a few weeks ago for $10,000 or whatever. And I told him that this money came from that. So that's legit. I say, okay, well, let me make sure that that's your money and they're not going to take it. And if that's the case, I'll come out there and I'll keep half of it. So for my night's work. So I talked to the agent. Yeah, no, we're going to let him have that money. And the subject tells me, okay, they're going to let me keep this, Mr. Reynolds, so you can have half of it. I say, well, I'll suit up, head on down. So went to the office, took a shower, cleaned up, got to Dripping Springs. It's already dark. And I walked into the house, and I don't think I've ever been able to smell fear like this and smell tension and smell distress. And this man and his 2 sons and his wife were there, and they were just literally terrified. And he, in a moment of frustration, was so mad at himself, he smashed his fist in the wall, broke his hand. So, and then there must have been a dozen agents there from 3 or 4 different law enforcement agencies. Well, what's the deal? Well, so I got to get this fellow off to the side. Well, my son stole a bunch of money from a big time drug dealer. Okay. So the son is in high school, and he was hanging out with the daughter of the big time drug dealer. I'll ask you about this case later. bunch of details I don't remember, but you might know about it. And then we go swim. We go over to their house and swim all the time. They're always smoking dope. And my son figures out that the dad in that family is a major drug dealer. And so this really happened. The son and his confederate, his accomplice, decided we got to steal this guy's money. High school seniors, okay? So they're kind of watching things, and his confederate, or he calls his confederate calls him and says, David, I will just give him, I had to change a lot of names, okay? He says, David, I think this is night. Mrs. Drug Dealer, it's just, she's a drunk. And so she's the one with the loose lips and giving the kid marijuana to all the kids and so on. She's, well, let's go downtown and have a big steak dinner someplace. But we can't take that car because there's $500,000 in the trunk. So let's take this car over here. So the Confederate says, yeah, okay, well, let's go down and party downtown. Then he calls my client, David, and says, I think this is the night, David. I think the money's in the trunk of that Mercedes. And while I've got her and the family downtown, you need to go over there and get the money. And so he does. You can't make this up. This really happened. So David goes over there and he parks about 2 blocks away. He's dressed all in black, and he comes up to the house, and the car's locked, of course, but he has a little crowbar. So he starts working on the trunk, but he knows if he pops the trunk, the alarm's going to go off. And now the dog is starting to bark. So he's sweating bullets, right? And he's prying the trunk. He's actually pried a little hole, maybe about this big, without popping the lock of the trunk. But he can stick his hand in there. And he feels a duffel bag, feels like might have a bunch of money in it. So he's been at this maybe 20 or 30 minutes, and the dog is going crazy, and how they may be coming back. So he says, oh, what the hell? So he just pops the trunk. The alarm goes off. He looks inside, and there's a huge duffel bag full of money. And he said it was really, really heavy. And he had to pick it up and haul it 2 blocks. He said, I could hardly carry it. It must weigh like 40 pounds or something. And so he gets it to his car and he gets away. So great, right? Good for David. He's guilty of car burglary or something. That's it. It's drug money. Who's going to report them? Anyway, he takes it home and he hides it in his room. And within a week or so, he's bought himself a new car, a motorcycle, fancy motorcycle, a bunch of expensive trinkets and things. I mean, like his dad said, "What the hell? Where do you get this money, David?" Well, so David comes clean. Well, I stole it from Montoya, the drug dealer. And his father goes, oh my God, what am I going to do? Because if we turn it in, Montoya will come after us because he knows that you did the burglary. We can't turn it in. He tells me, I thought about just driving by Montoya's house, throwing the duffel bag over the fence and just running away. But David's father, we'll call Michael, decides we just better put it in the attic and think about this for a while. So, the longer he thinks about it, the less likely it's going to get returned. And but by now, people at the high school have noticed David's sudden wealth, and the word is getting around. So that's how the police got probable cause to search his house. He had told somebody we stole Montoya's drug money or something. And so now the police are at their house on the Friday before Memorial Day weekend, demanding $100. Well, Michael, the father, he smashes his hand into the wall and breaks his hand, and then he realizes, I don't want to, I need a lawyer. I don't want to talk about this. I don't want to tell you anything. My whole, they've already found marijuana in the son's room. So there's two boys facing misdemeanor charges already. And then the threat is, if you don't come up with the money right now, you're all four going to jail for a 3-day weekend and that blah, blah, blah. So he said, I just needed some. I just didn't know what, I wanted a lawyer. So you were recommended to me. So here I am. So I commenced to figure, all right, well, we've got something that they want. We've got some information that they want to get what they want. So we ought to be able to get something in return. So this was a big negotiation. It's 10, 11 o'clock at night now. And first of all, they hand over the 10 grand. And I get my 5 right then, put it in my pocket. So then we cut this deal where, all right, if you tell us where the money is, nobody goes to jail this weekend and nobody will be charged with any crime. Well, that sounds like a pretty good deal. So, but you will have to debrief. You'll have to tell us about Montoya and the thing and where the money came from as far as you know and so forth. So police have, there's a punching bag in the garage. They took a knife and just shredded that thing looking for all the money and they look everything. So while the father and the two boys were there when all this started, and then at some point that evening, 5 or 6 or 7 p.m., the wife arrives home in her car. She's been in class or something like this. And so she comes in and she's, oh my God, this is terrible. Shut up, honey. And, wait, lawyer's on his way. So on. So it turns out that the money had all along been in the trunk of the wife's car. So she has just driven up and they didn't think to go out and look in it. So he's sitting there in the driveway. So what a great situation. So, okay, so we're going to get out of jail free and no marijuana charges and no money laundering charges, none of that kind of stuff. Okay, well, I tell you, Agent so-and-so, I wish I could remember their names. Hildred.
Oh, yeah, this DEA.
Yeah, DEA, Hildred. Okay. So, well, follow me. So we go out in the driveway with the keys to the wife's trunk, open the trunk, a couple of duffel bag, a couple of gym bags, open up. I never saw so much money in my whole life. Just piles of $100 bills wrapped up and so forth. And so they seem very pleased, the cops. Now, of course, the word's going to get out to Montoya, the real drug dealer, about where his money went. And so now Michael is afraid for his family, of course. And they're free to go now at this point, and they pack it up, they get in their car, and they flee. And they never spent another night in that house. The following week, the interviews start. And they have found at that point $385,000 that was in the trunk of her car. So that's a nice chunk of change. So I was very impressed with that. But they found Michael, the father, his sister happens to have $75,000 in her house in a closet, in a suitcase, and they have found that. And they have found, another big chunk of change, like another 50 or 75 in another sister's house, which one sister cooperated and said, I got it from David. The other one says, oh no, that's my money, leave it alone. So now they want to know, well, where did all this cash come from? I think we're a bit shortchanged here, as you would think they might have been. So now they've interviewed all his family members. They want Michael, the scion of the family, to come in. By the way, Michael at that point in time was a member of the city council in Dripping Springs. So the first thing we did was resign from the city council. But then we go down for this interview, And it immediately becomes confrontation. Like, we think you're lying. We think you didn't honor your deal with us. We think there's more money and you didn't turn it over. So we're getting charges ready for you. And I said, well, then this interview is over. So we had to pack up and leave. And now everybody's really pissed off at each other. Uh, and I'm waiting for the other shoe to drop. At some point, I guess it's Michael himself. Yeah, Michael himself brings me a whole bunch of cash, like $100,000, and says, "Now this is my money, Mr. Reynolds." Sure, okay, right. But so I have just enough deniability to take this money and go to another lawyer's office and say, "Man, what do I do now?" Okay, so we talked about that for a while. At any rate, within a week or two, Hildreth and the DA, God bless them, found Montoya himself, the drug dealer who was like in their radar for a long time, and they knew about him. And now they can tie all this money back to Montoya with the testimony of the son. So they're real pleased. They've got the big bad guy, the drug dealer, and they've got him under arrest. And this is what I want to talk to Hildreth about. I don't know what happened to Montoya. I'm sure he got a stiff leg, but the feds finally lost interest in my client and his family. So no charges were ever filed. So that was a heck of an adventure.
So did Montoya presumably keep that $100,000 that you?
Well, Michael, the guy.
Michael.
Yeah, brought over this $100,000. I talked to this other lawyer about it, and he said, "Well, if Michael can explain, where it came from, then it's his money and it's not dirty money. So you should give it back to him." So I did. I gave it back to Michael, and for years thereafter, they were able to pay my legal fees for other trouble that his sons were getting into. Both of his boys got misdemeanor problems from then on. Yeah.
Montoya never went after the family thing.
Right now, he's in custody at that point. So he just got burned on that one, and he may still be. I don't know, but
Still there.
Yeah. So he was a major drug dealer and so forth, and I think he had a record, of course, and so they were very pleased to get him. That was the target all along. My clients were going to link the money to him, so he pled guilty, and that was the end of the Montoya case, and that was the end of our case too. So I was
brought down by a high school kid.
The high school kid who gave a very detailed, exciting description of how he got that money. So, but that was just 1988. Okay. Right. So let's see another. And you got any cases you want me to mention? Oh, how about this one? My last felony jury trial was a date rape case where the defendant is charged with non-consensual sex with this attractive blonde criminal defense attorney. She's practicing, in our courthouse. She's the victim. We don't use the term victim, we use the word complaining witness, okay? But because the victim is afraid of it. So anyway, the complaining witness is a well-regarded criminal defense lady in the courthouse. So the defendant, this is all public record, but I'm just going to call him Michael. Okay, he hires another fella who doesn't have much experience in criminal law, but Paul Morin. But anyway, he hires me. So he comes to me and says, "Reynolds, I got some trouble here, and I need help because they're not easing up on this case because of who the victim is, the complaining witness." So as you writers, experienced writers know, date rape cases are not easy cases for the prosecution. There's no blood, no bruises. It's in this case, the criminal defense lawyer lady, complaining witness, was very, very drunk. They were all drunk that night. They all went downtown to some club that had the boom boom room, and they were drinking. And there was probably a little cocaine going on at the same time. And they're all drunk. And they end up back at her house. And she says to my client, "Oh, so everybody has left, but my client's car, he had met up with somebody else, and they had met him downtown, and now he's out at her house. He doesn't have a car. And everybody's drifting away. And he's like the only one there left." And so he knows the lady. They've known each other a long time. In fact, they had a brief sexual relationship a year or two earlier. Thank goodness for that. That made their case, the prosecution's case, very difficult because of the prior relationship, right? So we tee it up for the jury trial. And the prosecution is at great pains to conceal the identity of the complaining witness. This is standard procedure now. We don't put rape victims' names in the press or anywhere that we don't have to. So in the indictment, he's accused of raping Jane Doe or something like this. The real name I'm going to make up is like Billy Smith, okay? But her in the indictment, it's Jane Doe. Okay, so when you're picking a jury, as Billy Smith reminds me, or somebody reminds me, that she attends our church and she works with the kids in the nursery department. And she's not doing cocaine and getting drunk and other crazy people. So she, but they're not going to reveal her name. But we're picking a jury, and you want to know, there's 50 people out there. Does anybody who know Billy Smith? Because if you do, you shouldn't really be sitting on this jury. So they can't give her name, so they give her name as Jane Doe, but they have a picture of her, right? Like a glamour shot, a really judged up picture. It doesn't really look that much like what she really looks like now, but so it flashes a picture up there. So does anybody here on the flyer know Jane Doe here? Well, nobody recognized her, so fine. So, okay, so we pick the jury. So the trial proceeds. The prosecution goes first. They like to bring in, prosecutors, they want everything they can throw at the defendant, hope some of it will stick. So they start off with the bed sheets. Oh, by the way, there was sex. Right? They did have sex that night. Jane Doe invited my client, Michael, to, everybody else is gone. You don't have a car. Come on, jump in bed with me like we did before. Right. So they did have sex. So now the state, which was not really not in dispute because there was an eyewitness that caught them in bed together. So that's how she sounded the alarm. Reynolds' client is taking advantage of my drunk friend here in her bedroom. So they call the police. So police come and they're going to do their investigation, right? They take I forget all my pseudonyms now. Jane Doe down to the police department for the rape exam, right? The sexual abuse nurse examiner, SANE, and it involves swabs and blood tests and interviews and so forth. And they go into her house and they seize all the empty beer bottles and whatnot and the sheets off of her bed, right? So to prove, I suppose, the sexual act. So first thing the prosecution does, they bring all the sheets and grocery bags. They bring them in and they say, Miss Doe, are these the sheets off of your bed? She says, yes, those are my sheets. We'll offer them into evidence. Well, I was unaware of any lab reports that actually had any significance for the sheets, so we didn't object. So the sheets come into evidence. So then it's our turn to cross-examine this investigating officer who sees the sheets, right? And so Paul, my co-counsel, he's doing his job. He goes and gets the sheets off the exhibit table and takes them back to our table. And I guess he's looking for the stains. But Billy Smith's name is on a tag on the sheets, on those sheets that are now in evidence. And so Paul says, okay, Miss Joe, well, who is Billy Smith? Oh my God. Oh, hell breaks loose. Right, because it's supposed to be a secret, right? But they put it into evidence. It's in evidence. Well, immediately runs up to the bench and has a whispered conversation. What are we going to do about that? So we just back away from it because it wasn't that important. But I just thought that was pretty amusing that they revealed they had gone to such great pains. To conceal her identity. And it turned out in the middle, second or third day of the trial, one of the jurors says, I know Billy Smith. You know, I recognize her now in her normal appearance. I've known her for some time. So it was important that they had tried to conceal her, and that if we had been able to tell the jury, but Billy Smith is your real victim, well, that lady would not have been on the jury, and she would not have voted to convict, which she ultimately did because she liked Billy Smith, right? So then the rape kit comes in with all the swabs and this and that, the reports, the SANE report, the offense report. It seemed like the prosecutor is just going to offer State's Exhibit number 8. Okay, it's a little box with all this stuff in it. Well, so I take it apart. Let's open up what's in this box. So we got swabs, we got DNA reports, we got lab reports, we got offense reports, all in this box, all of which are basically inadmissible for one reason or another. So I just said, well, let's call this State's Exhibit 8A. And that's the offense report. Well, judge, offense reports are not admissible. That's right, Mr. Reynolds. So sustained. So 8A is out. Well, here's 8B is the SANE nurse's report. Well, that's another report. She's going to testify. She can't put her report in like this. The judge says, okay, well, you're right. 8B is excluded also. So after a lot of that, 8A, 8B, 8C, 8D, 8E, and 8F were all excluded. And there wasn't anything left in the rape kit. So, but, okay, let's see. I think there were probably a number of other surprises and interesting wrinkles that may even be, I don't recall. I do recall this. We argue the case to the jury. There's a hung jury, 7 for acquittal, 5 to convict. So, okay, here's a sad situation about money. Hung jury, judge declares a mistrial. It's reset for jury trial a month from now. Right. So we're going to kind of have to come back and do it again. Well, that gave me time to say to Michael, the defendant, look, you got a pretty good deal from us 2 lawyers for your first 10 grand or whatever it was. But we have another trial coming up and I want another 10 or something like this. Well, he didn't have any money. He was really tapped out. But Paul Morin was the official lawyer on the case. He had made the initial appearance. He's the counsel of record. I just showed up, actually, literally, like a week. I've been working on it for a month, but I just showed up like day before trial to help Paul defend the case. So I said, well, you know, Paul and Michael, if you don't have any more money, I think I'm done. That was really hard trial that went on a long time till judge pushed us till 8 or 9 o'clock. The state took its sweet time, 3.5 days putting on their case. Then when it's time for the defendant to put on their case, it's Thursday afternoon. And so she works us till 9 o'clock that night. Anyway, it was hard. So I wanted more money. So they didn't have it. So I said, well, I guess, Paul, you're on your own. I'm out of here. Well, the guy didn't want to pay Paul. Didn't have any more money to pay Paul either. So he, if he had the money and had maintained his innocence, he would have been fine. They would not have retried the case. It had too many holes in it. But he didn't have the money, so I'm gone. I'm out of it. But months later, they have pressured the defendant to plead guilty to misdemeanor assault or something like that, just so we can get our little pound of flesh, even though that had nothing to do with those facts. Assault, there was no assault, right? But anyway, that's how it ended up. Because
I have a question.
yes,
Actually, oh, go ahead.
I was wondering what the purpose of the rape kit is if the claim is consensual sex. Like, what's the rape kit going to show them?
not much.
Oh,
I forgot the postscript. Billy Smith is now a district judge in Travis County. So I never appeared in her court after this. So I didn't want any part of that. That's, I think, the interesting link there.
and I have another question too, because you brought up, something that you do hear about, which is where the prosecution really tries to intimidate a defendant to take a plea instead of going before a jury, because if they go before a jury, they could get so much worse than if they take the plea.
Oh yeah, that's the way it works. It's always the way it works. It's always the way it has worked.
So is that a conflict for you?
Let me tell you another example. I just realized I'm supposed to wrap this up in 25 minutes, so I have many
Actually,
more.
before you move on, there was another question about this case from the chat. And I think she asked why the case wasn't thrown out. Yeah, they can't throw out the case when the victim's name is revealed.
No. I mean, she's still supposedly victimized, whatever. She's now her confidentiality is blown, but that was their fault, So, pleading guilty when you're not guilty, or so. The biggest case probably I ever handled was I got a kid, got 99 years for beating and torching a transient. Okay. 3 guys pull up to the 7-Eleven store. My guy is a driver. He's in the car. He stays in the car. The other 2 go into the store, and there's this drunk transient out behind the store. And these 2 characters, they're they're bad people. They're nasty. And they beat him with bricks and stuff, and they put lighter fluid on him, and they and light him up. So that's pretty bad. So my guy didn't really know anything about that. He doesn't know these 2 fellows very well. He thought they were going to go in and buy cigarettes or something or other, and they end up with this. He never even met or saw the transient. It happened behind the store. So long story short, well, he gets 99 years. Well, I got to wrap this up fast. But it's a long story because I didn't do the trial. I was only hired on the appeal. And the appeal was basically along the lines of, you have to have 3 people to commit the offense of engaging in organized criminal activity, which was a special charge they brought here. And it elevates the punishment range. Bad news. So I basically, long story short, I contended at the appellate court that the evidence didn't show that my guy, John Reyna, was involved in any of that. He was the car driver, but as far as planning and conspiring to commit a felony attempted murder or anything, nobody said that he did anything like that, and there wasn't really any evidence that he did. And the Third Court of Appeals agreed, reversed Reyna's conviction. the state appealed it to the to Texas Court of Criminal Appeals, the highest court for criminal cases in Texas, and they agreed with me also. Insufficient evidence, so Reyna's case is reversed, and he's sent back to Travis County for a retrial. Meantime, one of the fellows who went to trial with Reyna, the two of them, he got 99 years as well, right? He got 20 for attempted murder and life, or 99 for engaging in organized criminal activity. But they didn't give Reyna 20 years for attempted murder because they just thought he was involved in the planning, which he wasn't. There really wasn't any evidence that he planned. So I'm making a long story, short story, even longer than I have time to do. But he comes back down to Travis County, and they're going to tee it up for another trial. But practice tip: prosecutors do not want to retry a case. The judge never wants to hear that case again. So, and that would have been helpful in the case of the date rape case. That they would never have tried that case again if that fellow had just had a little bit of money to put up a fight. So Reyna comes back, and his 99-year sentence has been set aside. I think he's I don't remember if he's in jail or out of jail, but the prosecution offered a deal where, look, we'd recognize our case is a little bit weak here, but we'll let your guy plead to misdemeanor assault, if it'll go away. And I'm thinking, well, he wasn't anywhere near the action. He's innocent. He didn't do anything. So I lay it out for John, and he says, if there is any chance of my spending, he's been in jail for 2 years, prison. If there's any chance of my spending a single another day in jail, I don't want to do it. I'll plead guilty to anything to get out of here now. So that answers your question. So he pled for like 2 years for a misdemeanor assault or something like that. So another defeat. No, that was actually a great victory. Oh, now that's the end of that story as far as Reyna is concerned. But he had two co-defendants. The fellow that went to trial with him, he got 99 and he got 20. Long story short, his 99 was also set aside, but his 20 stayed because he was one of those guys who was beating and torching the transient. Transient survived, by the way, but anyway. And now the third guy, he saw what happened to the first two guys, and so he comes in a week after their trial, and he pleads guilty. He's getting 50 for engaging in organized criminal activity. So, end of the case, right? Wrong. His family hires me, 6 months later because, look, these other two guys got their 99-year sentences busted because there was no engaging in organized criminal activity by 3 conspirators. I thought this is a laydown. It's a gut cinch winner. The judges, the elected judges in Texas, just could not fade the heat. To cut that guy, he was not convicted. He didn't plead guilty to attempted murder. So if his 99 was set aside, he's out. He's done. So they wouldn't do it. So in my memoir, I've got a lot of legal stuff which most people would not want to read, but that was just wrong. That was Court of Criminal Appeals finally saying, we just can't fade that heat. And Judge Will Flowers was supposed to do the findings of fact and conclusions of law to send it after my writ hearing. He refused to do it. They sat on his desk for 6 months. Occasionally I come through there and say, when are you going to turn that in so we can push this appeal on down the road? He never did. He finally retired. And that was either that guy. As far as I know, that third fellow is still in prison. So that's unjust.
We have a question on the chat.
Oh, he's watching.
He's watching. Yeah, he's here.
Can you define fade the heat for us? Something.
Oh, yeah. Well, the judges in Texas are elected. if they let somebody out on bond or reverse, God forbid, reverse a big sentence on a nasty case like that, there's going to be political heat, and there's going to be somebody running against them the next time around. And this third fellow, he didn't have hardly any money and no resources, so we had our hearing, but the judge refused to. I think his findings would have been against us because Will Flowers, he didn't want to make any findings that would support my argument, even though I was right. But it would come back on him at the next election. So that's the end of that. Wow. Jerry Caruth, want to say hello. I had something nice to say about a lot of federal prosecutors I dealt with, even you. Sorry you missed our talk today. Okay, yeah.
Does that happen in your experience? Did that happen, that kind of thing? Somebody, a judge who was afraid to face the heat would make a choice that seemed unjust?
Most of the time.
Huh.
Sure.
I mean, it would change his
absolutely
direction.
Wow. I mean, I have other examples. Some of those judges that I wish was outside, they're on fire.
Mm-hmm.
That would not do the right thing. The Wright case, well, it's a long story, but the Third Court of Appeals, this guy was convicted of possession of marijuana. He was the backseat passenger in a car driving around in Wilco, and somebody in the car is sick. They're sticking their head out the window. Okay, so it's two in the back, two in the front. And so the Wilco deputy sees the car, he sees the guy being sick, so he stops him. You are supposed to have probable cause to believe a crime is being convicted to pull over a motorist, right? So, or you can be executing the community caretaking function, a beautiful fiction made up by the courts to justify all traffic stops that aren't otherwise justified, because there might be somebody in the car that's dying or not well, or maybe they need help. Notwithstanding, there's three other people in the car that can take care of this stuff. Anyway, they pull him over. There's the pot right there in the console, so they all go to jail. So I took a swing at the community caretaking function, which is just, I think that doctrine is dying, if it's not dead already, but for a while, it allowed police to stop anybody that they thought might be needing some help. So I didn't do the trial. I did the appeal. The guy was convicted, of course. We appealed it, Third Court of Appeals. Judge Marilyn Abusi, a classmate of mine, said, "Oh, there's nothing wrong with this." And she, 2 or 3 paragraphs of boilerplate law about the Fourth Amendment, which didn't apply. Yeah, I may be confusing. I'm confusing that. Oh, I'm sorry. I've really digressed here. I won the third. I won. She screwed me on another case. I won this one on the caretaking function, and then state appealed to the Court of Appeals, and I won it there. So for a time, there was no community caretaking function justification in Texas for pulling over people because we think there might be something wrong. The case I confused Marilyn Abusi with, I've just got to mention this. I have very little time. 2 Hispanic guys drive down the street. They're pulled over. There is pounds and pounds of cocaine in the fake gas tank or something like this. Now, both of them are convicted. I'm not involved in that trial, but the driver, he's toast because it's his car. But we look for this, how do you link the passenger to these drugs. Just because they're in the gas tank, that's not enough. Shouldn't be enough. You'd be amazed how many judges think that's fine. But anyway, no odor of drugs, no furtive gestures, no inconsistent statements, no nervous behavior, nothing to suggest that the passenger even knew anything about this. So I appealed to the Third Court of Appeals, and that's when Judge Abusi wrote this boilerplate stuff. Oh, the Fourth Amendment, it's fine. And I said, I don't think so. So I appealed further to the Texas Court of Criminal Appeals. And I said, this is bullshit. You know, this is nothing here in this record to link my passenger to those drugs that were hidden. The Court of Criminal Appeals, to my amazement, agreed. Not only did they agree, they reversed the case and they rendered a verdict of acquittal, which is almost never happens. So now my guy is cut loose entirely, totally vindicated. But Judge Abusi, who wrote the opinion at the intermediate court level, she has retired, but she's a classmate of mine. And I didn't want her to get off so easy. So I found out where she's living or at now. And I just, after it's all over, I sent her a copy of the Court of Criminal Appeals opinion. I thought you might be interested in seeing how our case would resolve that. Okay. She doesn't catch on fire. Well, I got a lot of funny little stories, but I also don't want to take much more of your, well, I'll take 10 more minutes of your time unless nobody has any questions. Let's see.
I think there might have been one more. You were saying face the heat, right?
Fade.
Or
Couldn't fade the heat.
Okay, so how to fix the fade the heat?
Couldn't fade the heat. Yeah, just could not take the political
the
backlash from cutting loose somebody who might have been towards a transient. Okay, let's see. Okay, here's one of my faves. This absolutely one of my faves. I got to mention it just to toot my own horn. 1981. It's my first federal trial, and now I really always got along great with federal judges, but this guy, William Sessions, who was ex-military federal district judge, later Reagan appointed him to head the FBI, right? Right. He eventually resigned in a scandal, but hard ass. So my client there's 3 defendants. They're accused of tax fraud. You gotta know that this case.
Keep going.
You're acting at that time.
I was here.
So, Jack O'Donnell was the prosecutor, and Jim Damon was the main defendant, and he was a movement guy. He was a kind of APW landlord guy. This is the 80s, this is 81. And he has set up a tax preparation, practice. And he's really hitting his stride out in Rockwell at the Alcoa plant. And so all these blue collar workers are coming to Jim Damon. He's got this little tax preparation operation going, and they're bringing him their W-2s, and they're bringing him their gas bills and their mortgage payments and their insurance payments and their grocery payments and their dog food payments. And he is writing all these up as tax deductions. Probably not. Probably not.
He was setting himself up as those people up as having a business, and he was using those deductions. I went undercover on that case.
Undercover. Perfect. Well, Bernard and I.
It was the right return, the right refund, the wrong refund, and the one that you always wanted, which is always the bigger refund.
Yeah.
So 3 of them.
He was cranking these out. He had a lot of. So my client happened to be a seasonal employee with the IRS, all he did was, like 3 or 4 months a year, he takes in the tax returns. If the numbers add up, it's fine. If they don't add up, he sends a notice or deficiency, or you did it wrong, that kind of thing. So he had been doing that work for, I don't know, a few months, maybe a few years. But he knew Jim Damon because they were both hippies, I guess. And Damon needed help. He has so much business now. He asked Bernard to come help him in this business. So Bernard didn't know anything about it when he started, but by the end of the week, he figured something was wrong. He worked for Damon for 1 week. And after about the 16th or 18th return, where he's listing all the dog food and the mortgage payments and the insurance payments and the rents as business expenses, my guy quits. He said, I think I'm done. Yeah, as Ed says, if you have a business, some of that may be deductible. But if you're just a W-2 employee at Alcoa, that's not deductible. So he quits. Agent Martin finds out what's going on and rounds up Damon and his wife, Joanna, and my guy, Bernard. Maybe you remember him.
I think he became a witness also.
He what?
Became a witness?
Well, no, but he was such a minor player.
Yeah.
But he's a defendant, okay? So he hires me. And this is absolutely my very first federal case. And 21 Alcoa employees are now, they should be, they've all been audited. They probably should all be charged with filing false tax returns, but they're not, of course. They're small fish. What the IRS wants to get Damon and his operation shut down, right? So they come after us with both barrels. And there's a lot of preparation. My guy had, of the 21 tax returns that had been audited and found to be bad, 4 of them had been worked on by my guy. It was like his handwriting or something. So they got 4 substantive counts against me and 2 vague, obscure, ridiculous federal tax charges about an IRS employee who didn't report a crime. They could never prove that he didn't report it, so they dropped that at some point. And a conspiracy count, right? So that's some heavy stuff coming at you. So I worked that case for a year, preparing that thing and researching and so on. So we show up on Monday morning for jury selection. Oh, so Damon has hired Jim Simons, a great guy. He was at that time a movement lawyer. But the movement is kind of moribund at that point, but he's still highly regarded in the movement community, and Damon is a movement guy too. And so they hired Jim Simons. And even though on Monday at jury trial, everybody's there except Jim Simons, the lawyer. He's no-show. Where is he? He has checked himself into the state hospital or something or other with either a nervous breakdown or a drug-induced problem, which is very embarrassing for Jim, because Jim's a good lawyer, and I've known him for a long time, and he does good work. He did good work, but not that day. He didn't show up. So now Judge Sessions is pretty hacked off because we got the panel out there, and everybody's assembled and so forth. So he says, well, that's just terrible. He throws Jim Simons off the case. He says, everybody come back here. I think he gave us two weeks, maybe 4 weeks. This trial is reset for 4 weeks. You get yourself a new lawyer and you be ready. Well, Damon has learned his lesson now. Jim, he wants a heavy hitter. So he hires Warren Burnett. Okay, he's a legend. Look him up in Wikipedia. He's like Racehorse Sayings or Percy Foreman. He's one of these real, what we call a swinging dick criminal defense lawyer. Okay, he is good. He's super good. And And they hire him. And I'm thinking, okay, two things. I'm thinking, wow, I get to try a case with Warren Burnett, who was absolutely a legend at the time. And secondly, how's he going to get this complicated tax case ready in 4 weeks? Not possible. But he did. He shows up for trial a month later, and he's ready to go. So we have this trial, and the 21 taxpayers come in and they say, you know, I hired Damon to do this, Damon did that, Damon, and Reynolds's client did, 3 of them testified that my client did their tax returns. The 4th one didn't remember my guy, couldn't recognize him, even though you guys had linked him up. He said, nah, I don't see my defendant in the courtroom. So immediately I got a not guilty on that charge. So now the government rests. It's the defense turn. And this last, I'm making a long story real short. So Warren Burnett, who is absolutely, assuredly the most accomplished, most talented lawyer I've ever worked next to, he says, okay, Reynolds, we're going to, we're not going to take the witness stand, right? I said, no, I think my guy needs to testify that he didn't really know what was going on. He says, no, leave him off the stand. I'll sail us all out of the courtroom. And at this point, he has dragged me literally into a broom closet in the hall outside the courtroom, a little room like this or something, smaller. I said, no, Warren, I've got it. I'm going to put it on the stand. He says, well, you're a goddamn fool. And I am shaking in my boots, okay? But that really happened. So Damon does not testify. Bernard does testify. And the jury, first of all, Damon, I got to give you this. I got to get Warren Burnett this. 21 taxpayers are saying that he did these things. Warren Burnett convinces about half of them, 10 or 11 of them, that you really did have a side business. Or you did somebody's laundry, or you cut firewood for somebody, or you made a little money fixing somebody's car. And so half of them are admitting that I had a business, so I have Schedule C deductions. But he couldn't get all 21 of them on board, so they go down. He's going down. So they convict. And then when Bernard testifies, he admits that I helped on those 3 taxpayers, and I helped that guy that couldn't identify me that you can't prosecute me for anymore. So Damon is convicted along with his wife. The conspiracy charge is not guilty because Warren Burnett did a great argument for me. He said, conspiracy, these 2, they hardly do it. You know, he's only there a week. It wasn't any conspiracy, wasn't any plan. And so the jury agrees, no, not guilty. Damon was in the meantime convicted of all 21 counts, the substantive counts of the taxpayers and the conspiracy, and so was his wife. And on the 3 that our guy did, the tax return, there was a hung jury. So they couldn't agree to convict my guy. So as sentencing, Damon gets 14 years to do. My guy, Jack O'Donnell, prosecutor, says, we'll tee your guy up next month. We'll try that case again. Because it's a mistrial, it's a retrial. Got to face the music again. I said, okay, Jack, bring it on. Prosecutors hate to retry cases a second time. And that was a lot of work. And so they finally agreed that they didn't want Bernard that bad, so they dismissed those cases. So he's clean. And that was my first felony federal trial. In fact, most of us don't get a not guilty in federal court ever. Because 90, what is the percentage? 97,
Yeah, I think.
97% plead guilty in
They
federal
don't
court.
bring them.
Of the 3% that don't plead guilty, they go to trial. 90% of them are convicted. So we really, jumped to a tiny little escape hatch. And so we got no problem. And Bernard and I remained friends for a long time and bought a rent house, and we were partners for 24 years. He's a great guy and totally, of course, not a criminal. So that was another. I got 6 or 8 more if you got another hour. I think I'll let you go unless there any other questions. Oh,
It's been fantastic. Thank you so much for coming.
well, I enjoyed it.
Thank you so much.
Good.
Mark, you remember the Madeline O'Hare case you came and talked to us about? It's fabulous. That was another fabulous.
That's a long time ago.
Yeah.
They've been tied 21 years.
Really good to see you. And so you remember that thing?
Yeah. Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
I did the undercover. I was one of the guys.
Probably interviewed some of those taxpayers that.
Those 4 people, there was during the era, this lady that y'all know, during that time in the 80s, people were investing in campers and things like that and going off on vacation. All those people took all those huge refunds, put them into a swimming pool, a camper, and all these things, and they went back and audited every one of those people, not just the 21. Those were the ones chosen. There must have been 50 people, and everyone had to pay their tax liability back.
Wow.
Plus penalty. I don't think they got a fraud penalty, but makes no difference. Negligent.
Well, they were ignorant. They were very,
Well,
they were mostly,
Yeah, but they should have.
right? I don't. Don't have me about the tax laws. I don't understand.
Well,
It's
tough.
CPA.
One of the women,
Yeah.
really went in.
Yeah.
She went in and she told a person about, she was
Hi, Jerry.
wore shoes. I love shoes. And she bought a lot of shoes. She said, well, you're in the shoe business. So he set up a schedule C for the shoe business. She wore shoes. She never sold shoes.
I Sherry.
People. People I talk to.
Yeah. They were working in, Alcoa, if you don't know about this, they were working in the plant where that, they were processing aluminum. It was 135 degrees, 8 hours a day. So those people were really getting more, their bodies were getting impacted, and they ultimately probably died younger than before they should have. But it's just the idea that it was really hard. We didn't feel good about that, believe me, about putting those people through all that and making them forcing them to pay the taxes plus the penalty.
Well,
But that was the exam section.
criminal, that would not have been the best use of the resources.
No, it wasn't.
For these 21 or those other ones.
Well, we had
By
to
the
get
way,
David, we had to get him out of there.
one of those 21 testified that, Agent Martin came to visit me. They really wanted, they were really asking her to come. She testified.
Really?
So, on cross-examination, I said, I talked to you maybe months ago. You said, you said something different. If you didn't remember my guy, that wouldn't happen.